Imagine a room with no doors. In the center of this room sits a machine, vast, humming, and connected by silver wires to every house, every factory, and every bank account on the planet. This machine has a peculiar property: the more it breaks, the harder everyone else works to fix it. If it stops, the room goes dark, not just for the owner of the machine but for everyone standing outside the walls. We are taught from childhood that debt is a shadow. We are told that to owe is to be weak, and to be in deep debt is to be on the verge of ruin. We look at the staggering clock of American debt, trillions of dollars, numbers so large they cease to be math and become a dark form of poetry, and we wait for the crash. We wait for the repo man to knock on the door of the White House. But the repo man isn't coming. He can't come, because he is using the same currency to pay for the gas in his car on the way there. In this landscape, bankruptcy stops meaning what we think it means. The United States hasn't just accumulated wealth, it has woven itself into the fabric of reality. It has turned its greatest liability into the world's only life support system. To understand why, we have to stop looking at the dollar as money and start seeing it as the ghost in the machine. Most people view the national debt like a personal credit card balance. They imagine a giant bill that must one day be paid in full. But in the realm of global power, debt isn't a burden, it is a product. Think of a skyscraper. The deeper the foundation is dug into the earth, the higher the spire can reach. The debt is the foundation. It is the anchor. When the US government issues a treasury bond, it isn't borrowing in the way you borrow $20 from a friend. It is creating the only truly risk-free asset in existence. In a world of chaos, where regimes fall and currencies evaporate, the global financial system needs a zero. It needs a fixed point. US debt is that fixed point. If you are a pension fund in Norway, a billionaire in Dubai, or a central bank in Japan, you don't hold dollars because you like America. You hold them because they are the only thing that stays still when the world starts to shake. This creates a gravitational paradox. Normally, if a person takes on too much debt, they become a risk. But this system doesn't break the way others do. Here, as the sun grows larger, the planets don't fly away, they are pulled tighter into its orbit. The more debt the US creates, the more the rest of the world is forced to buy it to keep their own economies from drifting into the void. Your savings, your job, your future, they are all denominated in a debt that is technically impossible to repay. Bankruptcy becomes irrelevant because it would mean not just a change in leadership, but the deletion of the operating system on which civilization runs. Before we talk about trade or inflation, we must look at the hidden architecture, the legal infrastructure. This is where the ghost in the machine truly resides. When a company in Brazil signs a contract with a firm in Malaysia, they often specify that any disputes will be settled in a New York court, under New York law, in US dollars. This legal dollarization is a silent empire, a web of contracts spanning the globe, anchored to a single point of truth. This means your business, your savings, and your future are quietly governed by a court you will never vote for, under rules you didn't help write. It is a system that enforces its own survival through the sheer weight of global trust and predictability. To go bankrupt, the US would have to break not just its banks, but the very concept of international law. The dollar is a promise that tomorrow will look a lot like today. And in a world of radical uncertainty, that promise is the most valuable thing you can buy. But that promise comes with a cost we pay every day without noticing: the price of having no other option. It is the steady, rhythmic erosion of individual sovereignty in exchange for collective convenience. There is a phrase used in the halls of power: our currency, your problem. When a normal country prints too much money, its economy explodes. Prices skyrocket and the currency becomes wallpaper. But the American machine operates on a different kind of alchemy. Because the dollar is the world's reserve, the US effectively exports its inflation. When trillions are printed, they don't stay in New York or Chicago. They flow out to the oil fields of the Middle East, the factories of Asia, and the sovereign wealth funds of Europe. The entire world absorbs the impact. The US gets to buy real goods, steel, electronics, labor, with paper created out of thin air. This is the ultimate form of leverage. While your local currency might lose half its value in a decade, the dollar spreads that loss across 8 billion people. Every time you buy a gallon of gas or a plastic toy, you are participating in the quiet maintenance of this machine. Your purchasing power is the fuel that keeps the engine cool while it burns through the world's resources. Your ability to own a home, to feed your family, or to save for a future is the margin the system uses to balance its own books. We often hear about alternatives. Digital coins, gold-backed tokens, or baskets of foreign commodities. They are presented as shadows ready to replace the dollar tomorrow morning. But a system is more than just a coin. It is the pipes. To replace the dollar, you would need to replicate 100 years of legal precedents. You would need a court system the entire world trusts to be transparent. You would need a military that guarantees the safety of the seas and the fiber optic cables on the ocean floor. You would need a market so deep that billions can be moved in a heartbeat without moving the price. America hasn't just built a bank, it has built the only bridge over which global trade can flow. You might hate the bridge. You might curse the tolls. But until a second bridge is finished, one with the same history, the same military, and the same laws, you will spend every penny you have to make sure the first one doesn't collapse while you are standing on it. This is why the US will never go bankrupt in the way we expect, because the world would rather fund a failing bridge than fall into the river. There is a recurring nightmare that haunts the headlines: the death of the dollar. We see digital maps of new alliances and hear whispers that the world is moving on. But look closer at the plumbing. When a crisis hits, whether it's a pandemic or a regional war, what actually happens? Do people rush to the yuan? Do they hoard gold in their basements? Perhaps for a moment. But then the great gravitational pull begins. Investors flee toward the safety of the US dollar. The hidden strength of this system is that it thrives on instability. While other nations pray for peace to grow their wealth, this financial hegemony is reinforced by fear. The dollar is not just a currency, it is a global insurance policy. And the United States is the only company allowed to sell it. If the insurance company goes under, the policyholders lose everything. Therefore, the policyholders, the rest of the world, will do anything to ensure the company stays afloat. It is the price of our collective stability. We are hostages to an insurance policy we are forced to fund. It is a system that grows stronger precisely when the world grows more terrified. To be the world's reserve currency, you have to be willing to do something most countries find terrifying. You have to be willing to run a massive trade deficit forever. You have to be the world's consumer. You have to let the world sell you their goods in exchange for your paper. Most nations want to be the factory, they want to sell things and keep the money. America is the only nation that has mastered being the mall. For another country to replace the US, they would have to open their borders, deregulate their markets, and allow their own currency to be controlled by the whims of global investors. They would have to give up control. The US doesn't stay on top because it is the most disciplined. It stays on top because it is the only one willing to provide the service of being the world's debtor. This ensures that rivals have a vested interest in the debtor's survival. You do not burn down the house of the man who owes you everything. This is why the talk of bankruptcy is a fantasy. Bankruptcy is a legal ending. But these books can never be closed because they are the only books we have. If you look at the history of empires, they usually fall when they can no longer pay their soldiers. They fall when the treasury is empty and the borders are breached. But the US has digitized its power. It has moved its wealth into a space that is intangible. The debt is not a pile of gold that can be stolen, it is a series of incentives. Imagine the machine under immense pressure. As the world grows heavier, the pressure increases. Skeptics look at it and say, it will melt. It cannot hold much more. But they don't see that the pressure itself is the source of the stability. A collapse of this system wouldn't be a localized event. It would be a fundamental break in the nature of reality. It would be as if the law of gravity simply stopped working one Tuesday afternoon. Because we have built a world on debt, we have built a world that cannot afford for the debtor to fail. This is the ultimate too big to fail. It isn't a bank, it's a civilization. We started with a machine in a room with no doors. We look at the machine and we see the rust. We see the sparks flying from the wires. We hear the groaning of the metal under the strain. We are told by every expert that it is about to explode. But we forget that we are inside the machine. This system doesn't break the way we expect. It has turned debt into a shield, deficit into a weapon, and currency into a religion. We wait for the end of the story, for the moment the bill comes due. We imagine a ceremony where the empire is dismantled and the books are balanced. But what if there is no end? What if the machine is designed to run on the very friction that threatens to destroy it? What if the debt is not a problem to be solved, but the final, permanent state of the global order? We look at the numbers and we see a crisis. But perhaps the numbers are just a reflection of something deeper. If a system becomes so large that its collapse is unthinkable, it remains only to ask one thing. When the debt becomes more important than the people who created it, and when the person paying the ultimate price is you, watching your purchasing power quietly bleed out to fund a stability you never voted for, do we still own the machine, or are we just the fuel keeping it warm? Thanks for watching. If you like this story, please support the channel with a like and subscribe so you don't miss any new videos. And if there's a topic you'd like me to cover, write it in the comments. I read everything.